I'm very happy to introduce these scientists to you now. I will first have a connection with Mehmet abi. Mehmet abi, welcome. Welcome, Mehmet abi. Hi, how are you doing? I'm doing well. And you? I'm doing great. Unfortunately, I'm getting connected from Boston. If only I were there. That's fine, Mehmet abi. Our hearts are united. I'm leaving the stage to you. 10,000 young individuals are waiting with enthusiasm, and with excitement to listen to you. Hi, YGA members, young members. How are you? I look forward to this time of the year all the time. Unfortunately, we haven't been able to share the same platform for the last couple of years, but we are able to reach out to higher number of people thanks to Zoom. That's also great. This is a special day for me because I will introduce Professor Gökhan Hotamıs to you. He is joining us for the first time in YGA. Gökhan is like a brother to me. We have a great friendship, and I appreciate him as a scientist a lot. After my introduction part is complete, I will introduce him to you, but I wanted to state this at the outset. YGA young members, there was this survey last year which excited me. 90% of the participants, respondents said we want to have breakthroughs. If they were asked 10 years ago, they would say, I want to be a lawyer, I want to be an architect, I want to be literary people. But now you want to be entrepreneurs and make breakthroughs. That is something great in my opinion. YGA started as a dream 2 decades ago. Today we talk about entrepreneurs who have two wings, and this is a nest for them. You have great excitement inside of you to create innovatives, to make things from scratch, and to create future. Actually, if you think of an entrepreneur and compare them with a scientist and artist, you see common points. All three are interested in unknown things, not the known things. They want to create something from scratch, and you are going to listen to a great account of it from your brother Gökhan. Actually, I define it as this story of people who know how to find their way in darkness when all the paths are consumed. And here, dear YGA members, you need to enjoy certain qualities in order to achieve that. And here, please think about the first and foremost characteristic. You should enjoy to have a breakthrough, to be a pioneer. Just rack your brains about what that should be. Then I will give you the answer. For me, that is into what we call intuition in English. What is intuition and why is it important? Let's have a conversation about that. Malcolm Gladwell has this book titled Blink. He provides such a beautiful definition of that in that book. He says, intuition is the strength that comes with thinking without thinking. Such a beautiful definition, right? With your life, with your know how, with your profession, you reach such a level that you develop intuition. I call it actually ascending. I call it ascending and taking off, where your feet are cut off from the ground. In the next speech, you're going to listen to Professor Gökhan, Brother Gökhan, who will tell you about his first projects with a lot of excitement, enthusiasm. He will tell you about a project which combines science and art together, and you will see how he is cut off from the ground. Maybe he will deliver his speech as he is seated, but you're going to see him ascending. Achieving that sort of intuition is very important in life, and you are fortunate because Turkey is going through a critical phase and it needs to move to a new phase. When you look at the Turkish Republic, starting with the proclamation of republic, you see two phases. The first of which concerns the beginning of the republic, where we didn't have any Turkish economy, or where we suffered from lack of educated people. But there's this big dream, there's this big aspiration of creating Turkey. So here we compiled all the information, know-how from the world, turning them into works, arts, and other products. So we actually acquired things from the world and enabled their purchase. Economy grew to a certain extent through that, but you cannot just sell things. You cannot grow only by selling things. After the 1980s, based on uh, these these requirements coming with wealth and higher education levels, we came to see that the first creators, the inventors, could be replaced by Turks in all around the world, be it textile, be it refrigerators, be it vehicles. And we started to sell those commodities and products not only to Turkey but the world over. So selling something uh, by acquiring it from outside and processing it in Turkey was a new phase. But wealth cannot be achieved greatly either through that either. We need to now have firsts in Turkey so that Turkey can create that larger economy and prosperity. And here we need people that can do breakthroughs. Here I'm not saying that don't be an engineer, don't be a lawyer. Please don't get me wrong. Breakthroughs do not require a profession. Breakthrough requires you to do things for the first time. This is the perspective of people who likes failures and who likes achieving things through trial and error. More than 70% of the companies in the US actually shaped the future of the country through many firsts. You know some of them very well, and they are not small anymore. Apple, Google, Microsoft, Moderna, the company which produced a vaccine, Tesla, with a market of $1 trillion. Let me give you an example from MIT as a university institution. MIT has this innovation report, and when you look at the professors and students who are actively involved in the field, they have 25,000 companies, and the number of people employed there is 3.3 million, and their annual turnover, you cannot imagine, 1.1 is 1.1 trillion dollars. An 8,000 student university has such an impact on the American economy, which is unbelievable, bigger than the Turkish economy, one of the top 10 actually economies in the world. That is where greatness of achieving firsts come from. Turkey is ready to achieve firsts with your contributions. We are going to move to a phase where we can change the world thanks to you. One of the philosophers, poets, French, Saint-Exupéry says, your goal is not anticipating future, but rather creating it. What a good way of stating it. You are the people who will create the future by achieving firsts. That's why I take great joy in the fact that you are going to be entrepreneurs who make breakthroughs in the future. I would like to give you a few more examples now that we talked about intuition. In 1985, Robert Curl, Richard Smiley, they are from the Rice University, by the way, researchers and professors at this university, and Harry Kroto is another researcher from the Sussex University, UK. They find a new molecule of carbon, C60, which consists of 60 clusters. And you are going to hear from your brother Gökhan that he will refer to metabolism. He will tell you that the function and structure of the cell are interrelated. However, this C60, this carbon molecule, is not discovered in terms of its structure yet. Kroto in 1967 Montreal World Exhibition submits this great work of art by Parkminster Fuller. There is this geodesic dome, and when he sees that work, he has this intuition likening that dome structure to C60. You are going to listen to that story from your brother Gökhan, who will tie it to completely somewhere else. So they sit down to study the chemistry of this product, and they actually create a molecule used in a plethora of products, and they get the Nobel Prize in 1969 thanks to that. So the relationship between the function and structure is revealed thanks to the intuition of Kroto. You won't believe maybe, but the same structure is seen in a football. C60, Art Minister Fuller inspires that, and it's called buckyball. It's like football. It's called buckyball. Speaking of football, one of the examples I like about intuition is Ronaldo, one of the best football players in the world. We can have a discussion. Some of you might call, might say that it's Messi, but Ronaldo is not bad. One night, they take Ronaldo to record that video. You can find it, by the way, on the internet. They take him to a pitch in a completely dark night. You cannot see even the stars. So a person whips the ball from the corner, and Ronaldo, without having any vision, scores all the balls. So I told you previously that sometimes you assent automatically, because after a while you internalize things. You start, as Gladwell said, you start thinking without thinking, you start feeling without knowing. So Ronaldo scores a goal with every pass. That is something unbelievable. So I hold this opinion, dear YGA young members. Intuition is the highest level of intelligence. You can accomplish it with so much effort. This is not innate. Kroto, Ronaldo, and Gökhan abi are the examples of it. You have to force your limits. You have to continuously make mistakes. Sometimes when we say mistakes, well, people get surprised, but there is nothing as beautiful as making mistakes. I think you definitely heard it from Sinan abi. He is an admirer of Yunus Emre. He knows everything from Yunus by heart. He has a great saying, and we are commemorating his 700th year. A person who doesn't make any mistake is a person who doesn't do anything. What a great sentence. So in this new journey of breakthroughs, in this new journey of entrepreneurship, unfortunately, our educational system, and here our educational system refers to the global educational system, not only the Turkish one, it doesn't, unfortunately, it doesn't tolerate error. It punishes errors, mistakes. We always actually teach you how to be perfect. We make you fear from mistakes, but be friends with errors and mistakes. Learn from your mistakes and do not fear making mistakes. Such a person cannot take risks, and if they don't take risks, they cannot achieve at first. You're going to stay within your comfort zone. You're not going to take one step further. In order to achieve a first, you need to set out for this unknown journey where nothing is clear. This is actually a journey with so many uh, ups and downs and challenges. That's why you need to work hard and increase your knowledge level, achieving such a level that, like Ronaldo, you will be able to feel the sound of the ball or the pressure wave, sending all of those passes inside the goalpost with your head or feet. So please make friends with your mistakes. Learn the things at school, but do not be afraid of making errors or mistakes. I will wrap up my part by giving a few more examples from YGA because I also look forward to his speech. He's going to share great things with you, and I am very thrilled as I await his speech. But let me refer to six YGA youth who had three projects. We know that science sets were sent to more than 500,000 people. When we do that, they ask, are we going to make all the people scientists? No, we are going to create curious people. We are going to create people with intuition. We're going to ensure that we will have people that voyage into the unknown, foray into the unknown. And three projects attracted my attention last year. One of them was sent to Doğan and Eyüp in the schools of the visually challenged. The project was titled The Eyes of the Visually Challenged. They take the science set, they look at servo engine and other uh, sensors, putting their signature under something for the first time. The eyes of the visually challenged enable our friends with disabilities to navigate through their shopping experiences as they suffer from problems. So that's a first implemented by them at a very young age. We're talking about middle school, and high school students. Burçin and Mehmet from Zonguldak creates this house rotating with sun. The climate change, increased temperatures, and the obligation to transition into more renewable sources of energy actually means we should create new designs to benefit from solar energy and others. And they achieved another first by taking a huge risk based on that science set. Idil and Tulay from Adana created a project which was titled Make Way for Life. Ambulances, by the way, uh, I can refer to this anecdote where I went to a hospital with an American friend. There was so much traffic congestion that my colleague asked Mehmet, if there is an emergency, what does happen to people? How do you take them to hospital? 15 years ago, I was asked this question. Idil and Tulay, Tugay, actually provided a solution to this issue thanks to this science set, trying to come up with a solution. These are the most exciting projects for me because you take risks here. Transistors, sensors, and servo motors engines weren't known to these young people, but as people who do breakthroughs, they learn how to use their intuition. They learned about the details and they started to get swept off their feet at a young age. If you are going to make breakthroughs, and 90% of you wants to have breakthroughs, And I'm sure that all these 90% will be having breakthroughs, creating huge projects for Turkey. Please keep in mind that the products of such people, as in the words of Saint-Exupéry, is to create the future. So people with two wings who have an idea about the truth, who can decide by using their heart and mind, will always choose the easy way out in life. Whenever you encounter with a challenge, if you just make decisions based on your brain, you will choose an easy way out. You choose the beneficial route for you. But if you also use your heart in combination with brain, by the way, heart is here, not there. If you use your brain and heart together, you will find the right path. You will find the right route. That's why we give this takeaway message in this summit. On this beautiful journey, you are going to achieve first as young individuals. You're going to change the world as well as Turkey. We don't have any doubt. But in doing so, you should have double wings. You should think in a deep manner. You should think in correct terms. It is quite okay that you make mistakes. Learn how to fall and stand up again. I wish you all the best to you, young YGA members. You accepted me, you invited me. This is the most beautiful day of the year for me. But now I look forward to the end of my own speech so that we can switch to Gökhan abi's excellent remarks. I wish you, now I say goodbye. Thank you for inviting me again. Now we are going to listen to Gökhan abi.
Gökhan, hi, how are you? Hi, dear Mehmet. Thank you, how are you? I'm great. Well, I already told the guys. I said Gökhan is basically a brother to me, he's a very good friend. And so here we are tonight. After all these years of being friends, we've reached a certain level that I mean, as you know, I always talk about YGA, and it's such an honor that you're here with us now after all these years of work. So now it's a special day. Thank you for not saying no to me and for joining in. So let me introduce you, and then I'm really looking forward to your speech. I hope you are going to levitate as well when you're speaking. Maybe you can say things like such a lousy speaker so that we're not going to be raising the expectations. No, no. Well, I already talked about your Gökhan abi, but let me tell you a couple of things about him. When we say being a first, you're never going to find a better person than Gökhan in science and in arts. And we're actually going to have a conversation for about 15 minutes once he is done with his speech. So without further ado, I would like to introduce him very briefly before I give the floor to him. I think it would take about 30 minutes to fully introduce him, but I will do my best. At Harvard University's public health faculty, and I think he's been one of the first professors who was able to launch a new department. So he works on genetics and metabolism with J. Simmons, a J. Simmons professor. Also, he established a research center, which is very important because your Gökhan abi is leading this research center. It's a huge center, and it has it makes an incredible impact. He also is also a member of the stem cell research at Harvard University. He's an immensely successful researcher, and he's one of the professors with the highest number of citations. He will likely have more contributions to the literature, but currently he is working on this phenomenon we call inflammation and its impact on many diseases, including obesity and diabetes. He is the person who actually found out about its impacts on different diseases. So last week he gave a speech about that. He has numerous awards. Giorgio Canabi has huge number of awards. I'm not going to go into the details, but International Danone Award, Coach Health Award are among the prominent ones. We're talking about making an impact with by being the first, by about pioneering. So Baku Minister Fuller and being able to use your intuition and seeing what's unseen in the art. We kept talking about that, right? So Gökhan actually took things one step further, and he has a collaboration with a digital artist called Refik Anatol, and it's the first of its kind too. So without further ado, Gökhan abiniz. Thank you. Thank you. Well, after all these beautiful words, I think I'm so worried that you're going to be disappointed. Hopefully that's not the case, but thankfully Memo, since we're very close friends, I'm allowed to say that. He said so many beautiful things about me, and perhaps he did so because we're such good friends. I actually wanted to be there very much. This remote connection is something that I don't like. It's really not enjoyable at all. And I can't even see myself on the screen, so I feel like I'm talking to this empty computer screen. So I don't know how I'm going to how I'm going to keep being motivated, but we'll see. So first of all, thank you for including me in this excellent program and allowing me to be part of this celebration. I will mostly talk about this one project today. And this project is basically aimed at taking you on a journey to the very center of the cell. So I would like to congratulate YGA once again for this event and for its mission actually. Thanks to Mehmet, I had the opportunity to get to know YGA, and they visited our laboratories here. It's very impressive because there is an organizing committee that works with heart and soul. So thank you very much for all your hard work. So I think the most important thing that I would like to say is that I'm here speaking to you, but there's more than just me who makes sure that all of these things are happening. You can see the team on the screen. They are making all the sacrifices they can because they opted to work with us by making sacrifices, and they made great contributions. So I would like to give all the credit to them. Mehmet already mentioned that right now at Sabri Ülker Research Center, we're working at Sabri Ülker Research Center. Its emergence, its establishment is thanks to Ülker family's support, of course. They help us carry out these projects. So I will be talking to you about the projects, but if I, as a professor, write to an international organization about such projects, it's likely that it's going to be ignored or not going to be taken into consideration. Even if it is, I don't think it will get the budget or permission it needs. So you need patience, you need hard work for such projects. And you can only actualize them with support from certain institutions. So that's a privilege that I would like to highlight. It's very important for us. So I actually added this, so it's a little bit funny. I'm working with students and assistants, and it's very difficult to pronounce my name in USA, which is why I have a video about how to pronounce my name. They actually put up this video about how to pronounce my name. But when you look into it, you can see the solidarity and uniting force of the department per se. And without any problems, we are able to work there more than just mispronunciations. And there's great diversity thanks to the science. I think it's a gift from the science in which we delve in. So what we would like to know is about a healthy system and how a healthy system works. So, how does the body diverge from this healthy system and opens its doors to illnesses? So my perspective to that is that if we're talking about a human being, we're talking about an organism with genes and proteins, etc., and so on. It's a living being. This infrastructure has a certain capacity, and this capacity has to keep up with external and internal stress factors. So if there is negotiation between these factors, we call this adaptation or harmony, in which case we are healthy. But if this infrastructure faces certain external factors or stress factors and it cannot adapt, disease or illnesses might arise. So by factors, I'm talking about internal and surroundings and external surroundings, maybe. By external, I'm talking about microbes, diet or metabolism. These are things that we are working on. But this concept, this notion itself, is more than that. You can actually apply it to social factors because biology has reached a certain point where it's possible to understand the biology of this part. Think about pollution and toxic environment. You can actually adapt this whole system to these other factors. So what I would like to talk about today is this internal biological infrastructure. At its very core, there's an architecture, and by rearranging this architecture, we can contribute to this adaptation or not. That's basically the gist of what I'm talking about. So it's a relationship between form and function. When it's designed in architectural terms, form always determines function. This is actually a general belief. So if you're going to build a bridge, that bridge makes sure that you can drive over it. So the firmer or the tougher the structure is, or the stronger your materials are, the longer that bridge is going to survive. Or think about the huge halls and palaces, buildings. So when you think about them, there are functions offered by them, but they are limited and static. So then, let's think back on biology. What about the relationship between form and function in biology? The form that I'm talking about here is the form inside the cell, which I'm going to cover today. And then there is the other part that I cannot cover today, the forms that cells make up between themselves. So you can think about it like this. If form did not matter, the organs did not have to specialize. You can just put all the materials in one box and then you can put them in the body. Genes and proteins, metabolics, lipids and fats, you can put everything in one box and they would do whatever is necessary, but it wouldn't be this complicated. But unfortunately, that's not how this system works. And we want to see this, we want to observe this. And as Mustafa Kemal Atatürk has said, we would like to understand, we would like to infer meaning from it. That's the summary of this project. So how did we think about this? When we look at cells, look at the different cells. Here is a pancreatic cell. Under the electron microscope, this is how it looks. A liver cell is quite different. When you look at the brown fat cell, they are different. When you look at the white cell, it's different. So it's really not possible that you can talk about a molecular architectural design. There are minuscule forms there. So then, if all cells are different in terms of their internal architectures, and if these differences change things in health and in sickness and in health, there must be a function underneath them. So basically the question that we're asking ourselves, it's very simple. But simplifying things like this has taken decades maybe. As you simplify the question, the answer becomes more and more difficult, but it also becomes more beautiful. So there are two more people that I would like to give credit to. One is Güneş, a friend, a physician who studied in Istanbul, who's been working with us for 5 years, and The actually the architectures of this project are these two beautiful people. They have spent all this time before a microscope. Finally, they fell in love and got married, and now they moved to Berkeley University of. They're going to move to Berkeley University of California to set up their own lab there. The truth, the reality, the truth behind this project is these two people. So the method that we used through collaboration, Harold Hess and Sean Chu had used this other new technology to see things clearer. Because what we want to achieve is the highest clarity allowed by light, which is why we're using this technology called PIXAM. So you take one part of the dissection, and instead of looking at it with different lenses, you just take one part of the tissue, which is actually the piece of tissue that is observed in the largest way, in the closest way possible. And I'm going to tell you what it means. So for every 4 nanometers, we dissect one part. So we burn it with a laser, and then we take an image, and we actually do the same thing over and over and over again. So this procedure, is completed within 1 cubic meters because it's 100 microns times 100 microns, etc., etc. But just for you to imagine, it's basically the tip of the needle, but it's millions of times smaller than this. I'm telling you this so that you can understand how complicated this is. So I'm talking about this volume. 1,000th of a tip of the needle point, actually. You can imagine that this is how big it is. So now we're advancing through this tissue. Everything that you're seeing on the screen, they are structures within the cell. The mitochondria, the lines are endoplasmic reticulums, etc., etc. So afterwards, the segmentation, annotation, making sense of everything that you see here must be concluded in a 3D image, so that we can actually understand what it means. This means that we need an effort that's going to take a few years at the very least, because you can't really convey this to a computer screen, and the computer cannot do it by itself. You need to introduce everything, you need to use machine learning, you need AI for that, and there are many mistakes while you are conducting machine learning, etc., etc. So, at first glance, this is what we see. In the cell, you're actually seeing a tiny little part within the cell. It's highly dense, it's highly concentrated, with incredible organization. This is how a healthy cell looks like. So naturally, what we wanted to do is to observe healthy tissue, and this is what we have seen. But what happens when there's a disease in question? So this is what we have seen just now. The very same procedure was conducted with a liver cell from an obese person. So this is the exact same image but the cells belong to a normal person and an obese person. So I actually, my eyeballs popped out when I first saw this, because when I first saw the 3D image, I just couldn't believe my eyes. It looks like a completely different cell and not a liver cell at all. There are certain functions that it can fulfill still, but as you can see, all the harmony and all the organization has turned into this chaotic system. Certain structures are completely destroyed. So this means that if we come to this point, and Mehmet has already mentioned this, so I mean, let me say this. After we collect all these images, and the volume of everything that I've mentioned can reach up to 40 terabytes. So then here's the question that we have to ask. How can we infer more information, more knowledge from these 40 terabyte image load? So at which point we were introduced to Refik Anadol. Deniz Hotamıs, my niece, introduced us actually. So while I was talking about this, my niece said, maybe check out the work of Refik Anadol. So when I looked at it, this was the first thing that I saw. when I saw this, and this is a data sculpture. It's full of movement. It's very active. This is a data set that does not tell you the meaning. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it's one of the databases of big data that Refik was using. So I contacted Refik, and I said, I need your visual creativity, and do you want to use it for this project? And he was so excited. He's actually very modest and scientifically curious by nature. Just like me, when he's curious about something, he really wants to delve deep into what he wants to know. And he has such a positive personality. So we found out what we have chemistry, and then we set out on this project. Maybe we can talk about it more when Mehmet joins us. His artistic creativity and, I mean, his magical fingers, let's say. After a lot of failure and failed attempts, his magical fingers were able to turn it into something completely different. Perhaps this is going to be the most remarkable thing that I will show you today. Everything that you see here is real, except for the colors. So this is this is actually the structure of a cell, but a very tiny little cell part. The red ones are mitochondria, the white and gray parts are endoplasmic reticulums. So being able to navigate through this membrane is just incredible, because you can see how different parts of a cell contact and collaborate with each other. Now you can see, you can live in it. I mean, we are still at a very early stage, but this tiny little journey has never been done before, because you can see what's inside the cell. You can take a look at the cell from inside the cell. So remember this. This is the structure of a healthy liver cell. So let's take a look at the image from an obese liver cell. So these are the lipid parts in a healthy liver, in an obese liver cell. As you can see, the membrane organization has completely vanished, and you can see these tubes. There are certain functions that can be fulfilled by the endoplasmic reticulum, but not by other organs. You can see this new structure. So by using it, we can actually take away some building blocks. For example, there's a single mitochondria here. It's a healthy mitochondria. And we can see how they interact. An endoplasmic reticulum and mitochondria interacts. So this is so for an animal who is starving, this is how it works. It's basically like a hand and a glove. That's how they fit together. And once that stress factor is eliminated, they just go their separate ways. So during the pandemic, this actually surprised us in a beautiful way, because what I've already shown you was included in Dennis Biennale. We collaborate, as we did so before. We collaborated with Refik Anadol, and this was a great development from the last year. So I would like to tell you once again, the field organizing team and Sabri Ülker Foundation, I would like to thank them, because they have financially supported us. Unless they did so, it would have been impossible for us to do that, naturally. So one last thing before I finish. So this function is distorted, okay, but what does it mean? Does it happen indefinitely? Is there a reason, or is there a cause? Can we fix it? Can we change the function? That's a very important question. So to answer this, I will show you one experiment. It's basically about being a seamstress in modern times, because you have to deal with needles and sutures. So we can try to fix what's wrong in the liver. Maybe we can call it fixing. So this is the poor liver. We started the repair and we did so for a few weeks, but we noticed at the end that certain organizations emerged that we had not expected before. These parallel membranes started to emerge after the interventions from our side. And functionally speaking, this yielded a great result. So this is a dissect from the fatty liver. So after a while, we have seen these liver cells started to improve. So we only changed the form. By the way, these animals are obese, genetically modified obese animals. So this we only intervened with the structural change, and the function was dramatically changed. So obviously now it's possible. What I'm trying to say is that, to wrap up, I can say this in a classic architectural approach. There's a particular relationship that I already mentioned between form and function, but in the biological approach, function is making an active demand to form. It says, I have to produce insulin right now. So once the liver decides to do that, the structural changes that are required are conducted, and the tools that are used to that end become suitable for this function to be fulfilled. And it's very fast in doing that. So the static form, it's out of the question because the structure is very active, very dynamic, and it responds very rapidly to the warnings it receives. So maybe you can think of this question. I mean, you can think about hundreds and thousands of questions. How does the liver decide on what form to assume? Which signal tells it to do so? What mechanisms are there to understand what the signal means? What tools are used to take away these walls and stick them on different parts? So there are hundreds of questions, and they would take very long to solve. But the beautiful thing is that, as I've already mentioned in the beginning, looking at something as a concept, but seeing is something completely different. Being able to see something means that if we can have a healthy and simple outlook on things, we can get closer to the truth. So, I'd like to conclude my speech with the words of Yunus Emre. Seeking the truth is possible through science and art, but once they both come together, it's a source of sheer excitement. And it's an incredible instrument in reaching the truth. As Yunus Emre has mentioned, he said this 700 years ago, actually. Throw away whatever separates you from the truth, because it will vanish anyway. So having said that, thank you very much. Now, I'm looking forward to our little conversation with Mehmet.
Thank you, dear Gökhan. I guess we are starting a chat according to our schedule now. This has been a great presentation, a great speech. I want to tie that to my speech for YGA members, young members. I said putting your signature under firsts is a tremendous thing and it requires hard work. You referred to actually a few firsts of yours. How you used your intuition. For example, you said if I had written down this proposal, they wouldn't have even founded it. But that didn't stop you. That's what I want to tell young people. Your family, your parents will say, don't do this at all. People who love you don't want you to take risks, dear young people, because they always want to protect you, thinking that you will be sad if you fall down. So always take risks. If someone says no to you, if a few guys will just object to you, just keep doing. What did Gökhan abi said? I'm very curious, like Refik Anadolu, and I always follow my curiosity. These were the messages, hopefully, that are communicated to you. And sometimes you might say have an intuition, etc., at a higher level, but Gökhan abi tied that to a reality. There are people doing that in arts, there are people doing that in literature, as well as the business community. But Gökhan abi excited us so much. Remember, I told you that your feet are going to be swept off, and that's what he did. I have a few questions, dear Gökhan, but you referred to the difficulty of your surname. Let me remind you this. 30 years ago, I said change the surname before you become famous. Remember? It is not an easy feat. I mean, your first name is okay, but your surname is difficult to pronounce in the United States. I'm one of the lucky ones. I'm quite Toner is fine both in English and French. Thank you very much for your speech, Gökhan. And you referred to a quote by Yunus Emre, actually an area of specialty expertise by Sinan and others. They get great inspiration from him, and actually you quoted one of the best sentences of Yunus Emre. But unfortunately, we see not only in Turkey, that all around the world, that we started to get separated from each other. This phenomenon called social media enables people to put across so much information and not necessarily the good use of it. So, when I ask you about the situation of your reality, what would you say? I'm curious. Thank you very much. If only I had listened to your advice regarding my surname. So you see, I have a strong intuition. Yes, when you are a young person, you turn a deaf ear to people around you. So one of the mistakes we have committed in history, I can say. Actually, a civil servant at the passport unit said, change your surname. You cannot survive with it. You can make it Abraham Lincoln or whatever. I said, no, that's fine. I will continue as is. What you're saying is very true, Mehmet. My first message is actually about reality as the most exciting phenomenon in the world. And when we partner with artists, we try to present and see the reality in its naked form and before everyone, maybe. And after you meet with reality, you cannot possibly put your resources to unreal things. Unfortunately, we are in a horrific situation in the world. The talent to find reality is very well advanced, but on the other hand, we see this great war with it. There is this explosion of science as well as a fight against it. Therefore, I welcome such a meeting very enthusiastically because appreciating the value of reality and actually placing it higher than other things is important. I was having this conversation with a Nobel Prize winning scientist. The outcome was this is not a war where there is no victory. We always have to continue our struggle and not give up. And that's what you also stated. Occasionally, when you are young, for example, you want to make fast progress. You want to ascend to a very high place, but sometimes you need to pause. Otherwise, as in the case of Icarus, you can burn your wings by getting very close to the sun. So, learning and accomplishing things without making mistakes is a difficult task. And maybe we should cut down on news stories to better understand the world. We should cut down on commentaries. We should put aside our phone for a while. We should look at the world as much deeply as possible. And it is one of the actually saddening issues. You are right, very right. I tell young people that if you separate your brain and heart from each other in the decision making mechanism, if you just decide by your brain, you strive for success. Your goal in life is not getting awards. It is serving humanity as a scientist, as a business person, as a teacher, as an artist, I always say that life is a marathon. It is not a 100-meter sprint. You have to be very careful about that. I'd like to talk about your interest in art, but while listening to your speech, I came to realize that maybe one of the biggest breakthroughs in this century is Watson Crick's discovery of DNA, which changed the entire world. Actually, this was a two-page Nature article, and in this they referred to function and structure, saying that you cannot find function without finding structure. And Mr. Fuller's example about intuition, well, took us to that molecular structure, and then we started to have brand new products thanks to that molecule, as in the example of DNA. Now you are taking it to a completely new level where the cell level connection is established between the function and form. That's why I want actually young people to appreciate it. If you are not acquainted with a topic, you cannot acknowledge its importance. So you are bringing together the function and cell in a structure as complex as the cell itself. You looked for that connection and you found an artist to better differentiate that. Can you tell us a little about how that partnership was initiated? What intuition inside of you made you say, speak with Traffic Anadolu? How did you feel that this would be the right thing to do? Can you tell a little about it? Actually, I refer to the striking and attractive side of it, but it was first spawned back in 1993 with Ana Paula Areda, another great science woman, joining us from Brazil. So when we were discussing it at Microsoft, uh, we were studying the liver, and we would think of it as an entire entity through the microscope. And we said we don't look at the images, the scans of liver. And she had a simple uh, electron microscope experiment, and we saw greater things to study. That's how this idea came into being. However, we lacked the technology. We always had in mind that we needed an elaborated examination of it, but we didn't have the technology. We produced the data, but we weren't able to observe it as we liked it. I mean, we were able to achieve things until that very green stage. The computer capacity, our creative level, and artistic perspectives were not enough though. So when I saw Rafik's particular work, I said, well, this is what I need to do. That's how the intuition was born. Buckminster's Crota's geodesy, I mean, like discovery of the geodesy structure in that dome, right? Well, it has been, this question has been sort of bothering me for 9 years back then, and after a phone call, that excitement sort of was passed on to her because she has this insatiable curiosity as well. We thought of many things. Of course, all of them turned out to be unsuccessful. The systems collapsed. So you say error? Yes, yes. But Refik didn't give up. He said, let's do something like that. We're going to have something great out of it. That didn't happen, but still we had beautiful outputs. And we came to accomplish that great result, which represents actually 5% of the data set. I mean, we are able to observe only 5% of it, and we intend to show a more detailed perspective, a more detailed section with more elaboration. Very well said, Gökhan. That's what I want YGA members to understand. Achieving firsts doesn't necessarily mean doing something radical altogether. Bringing even the function and form at a cell level will hopefully bring a Nobel Prize to you, helping all of us take pride in that achievement. Mehmet, can I add something there? This can be also beneficial for our audience. We always need to work with people to overcome problems, challenges. I mean, a takeaway lesson can be as such. Sending emails, sending messages to someone, I mean, wouldn't be enough for you to collaborate with somebody. In order for you to persuade them to spare time and energy for you, to support you implement that idea, you have to explain things and excite them. You have to pass on that depth and thrill. That is a crucial aspect. As you approach people, you should keep in mind that they are not there to serve you. Have their own goals. So you should have a win-win approach, finding common grounds as a source of excitement. Very well said. Very well said. Young people from Turkey keep saying, let's do this, professor, let's do that, professor. But you say that you need to create actually a basis before asking a question. Everyone has a limited time in the world. That's why actually the preparedness of the one posing the question is all the more important. So, your partnership with Traffic Anadolu maybe led to a huge surprise for you. Okay, you started this with a big intuition, but I'm sure there were certain unexpected things for you. Like, I haven't thought of it, but it has been great. Or maybe you're saying, well, I expected to see that, but that didn't come to materialize. Is there anything that's positive or negative, like a eureka moment for you? Well, we come to memorize things we say, but actually, I appreciated that I'm well away from that point. I mean, I said I can communicate this data to Refik very quickly. I mean, I couldn't perceive even 40 terabytes of data. I mean, how he would send that to me. That was a very arduous challenge. We said, okay, we're just going to transmit it. Refik will just play his tricks, will do his work, and that will come into fruition. That was the first dramatical disappointment, finding the right format and finding appropriate method requires you to work on it for months. So these are examples where our expectations were far from reality, and Refik has these game engine software products used for games. When we were there and discussing with Refik, he said, well, we have this great capacity, long awaited capacity now, and let's integrate into the game program. I said that was the first breakthrough for us. And then we had a meeting 1 week later to see that outputs started to flow, content started to flow from that. That was a very exciting moment. And Venice Biennale accepted this study, which was actually a great surprise. That is something completely unexpected for a scientist. Biology taking place in a platform dedicated to art is very inspiring for me because the architectural designs within biology enables us to look at something more and more complicated than what we do as human beings. I mean, the theme here was in the Venice Biennale how we can coexist. I mean, biology spent billions of years to create these elegant systems, and it was unexpected that they would take it into account. That was like once in a lifetime development for me, although it's a symbolic uh, development. So here they we see the ramifications of this phenomenon, the way how design will take place by learning things from biology, by actually presenting, revealing it to everyone. Very true, indeed. Young YGA members may not know the Venice Biennale very well. This is one of the biggest arts platforms in the world that take place on an annual basis. It is generally based on sculpture and painting. In one year, it is based on architecture. The next year, this time there was this first of submitting a work of biology to this biennale, which is not an easy feat. This dates back to 30 years ago, a huge source of intuition and uh, errors, mistakes, and errors. Dear Gökhan, I'm checking this screen. I know of your house. I know that you are very curious about art. There are sculptures behind. You are a huge collector. You have this keen interest in art. Can you tell us a little about what kind of art you like? How does art move you? How does it fill you with joy? Can you tell us about it? Because when we are together, we talk more about art than science. So, can you tell us a little about your personal life? Well, sure. I mean, I like putting places that give me some relaxation. I shouldn't be cited as a collection person. My relationship with art started at a like old age, at a further age, but I deem them very valuable because what an artist goes through is similar to what a scientist does because they are like the victims and addicts of creativity in their lives, and they have this endless quest in their life journey, finding something and creating a great work of art may make you famous, as in the case of this invention or a piece of article that brings you awards. So the satisfaction you get in that quest is sort of neglected at the end of that journey. So arts remind me of modesty in that sense. And the miracle of art is that we don't have any digital work of art in our home. They are like pictures, statues, sculptures. Every time I take a look at those works, I manage to see something different. And the freedom administered when creating that is different. As I stated earlier, no one would have funded this project if we had written it down. If an artist said, give me three types of red paint, give me six tones of shades of blue, I mean, give me a brush, I will write, I will just do this, I will just do that. I mean, people would just like laugh at you, but in if you show that approach to an artist, but that's what we see as scientists. They say just tell us about your inputs, just tell us about the outcomes, the desired outcomes. They don't give us like a piece of paper or uh, paints or brushes or canvases as they are. That's why art gives me this tranquility and a peace of mind. Second, experimenting, reading scientific articles, they are not enough, Mehmet. Of course, there have been times where I will think of experimentation for 20 hours a day, but then that makes you process and product oriented. What you do doesn't give you much pleasure. because you keep doing that without thinking about it. But when you think again, when you go beyond looking at your works, when you start seeing, when you start communicating with those works, you start developing another perspective as well as creative works. And art make a huge contribution to that perspective. Sometimes you just keep looking at the experiment and you cannot hear what it is saying. But some artistic perspective and like taste enables you to see something else as a tool. When you start seeing that different thing, you start going outside the box. That's the biggest benefit I get from art, combining those things that normally look like different from each other. Very well put. That's why I tell young YGA members, volunteers in my previous speeches that you work on biceps, triceps, etc., etc. You play football, you do workouts, you do exercise, but brain is a muscle too. But you just make one side of brain work. If you're an artist, you use that part. If you are another person, you use another part. If you make all the brain muscles work, actually, that intuition will sweep you off the ground because one part of the brain deals with art, another part deals of the brain deals with science, math, and other fields. So please regard brain as a muscle and make different parts of it work. It is important. By the way, coming back to this concept of making mistakes, I can say that the Prussian Empire, the last actually ruler of Germany, Wilhelm Mark, saw the invention of this Mercedes car. Willem is against that vehicle. By the way, there are those actually signs as well as epaulets, etc. He is the Empire of Prussia and Austria. And I went to this museum in Stuttgart. You go to the very top floor, the fourth floor, you enter the museum. By the way, please go to the museums, dear young friends. It is critically important to learn about history. There's this completely white horse at the entrance of the museum, Willem's horse, and below it reads like this: Willem was thinking that car is an ephemeral enthusiasm and horses will be permanent. The guy believed in horse. I mean, if you talk with anyone back then, you would hear people saying that horse is the future. So do not just believe in people with higher authorities. Continue to pursue your life aspirations. So I know that majority of young YGA people love art because I have been to the summit 4 or 5 times at least before the pandemic, and we met with them in Eskişehir and other parts of Turkey, and they reinvigorated me. They kept me young. They made the life more beautiful in my eyes, and I really want them to be develop interest in art. So my final question will be about your recommendation concerning a bigger place for arts in their lives. Arts, literature, and other similar phenomena are deemed actually as secondary in our country as well as in the other parts of the world. What kind of an advice can you give? Then we will finish our conversation and I'll come over to you for dinner. Well, I think we have addressed these aspects enough, but let me highlight something once again. Be it biology, be it culture, there is no element that is as enriching as diversity. When you look at the authoritarian or autocratic regimes in the past, you see the mistake of making things homogeneous. Homogeneity means ending things as they are, be it cultural, be it biological, be it human related. So, when we talk about science itself, achieving a homogeneous structure isn't something desired. That diversity means a huge momentum for you. It can be about your culture, it can be about your perspective, it can be about humanity, brains programmed with different cultures perceive things differently. All eight of us read the same article and our attention is attracted to somewhere else because we hail from China, India, Germany, Turkey, with different mindsets. We have different competencies when it comes to combining literature and such. That's why that diversity is an empowering thing for humans in the life itself. And when it comes to administering science, per se, we should include diversity as much as possible. So here, the enriching things concern expressive things like literature, creating narratives out of it. And here you need to talk. And to talk, you need to read and know about literature. Also, in order to impress people, you should understand how those stories are turned into visuals. And in order to see, you need to develop a perspective. So, all of these elements have enriching impacts, and that doesn't happen like overnight. Growth cannot be just accelerated. It takes place in a gradual fashion. So we should be able to tolerate that. We should know that nothing can grow and finish very quickly. You cannot run this marathon at 100 kilometers per hour. Sometimes you need to slow down, you need to check your environment and benefit from that diversity. That's maybe how we can end this session. Dear young YGA members, please listen to this speech by your Gökhan Abi for many times because there are so many deep messages. You will benefit from this speech greatly because people from different backgrounds will look at the same thing and lead to the production of great results. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation, dear Gökhan. YGA members learned great things from you. It's great to have you here. Let's finish it as we have used our time. Dear Gökhan abi, Mehmet hocam, thank you very much. We actually listened to two great scientists in the world, and we witnessed how clear-headed people you are with small egos. And actually, you showed us that the science is not a far theme, but rather something from life. Thank you for showing that. Thank you, Aicha.